And what I'm going to talk about is going to really infuse you with the ideas of where I feel Tamika is going with this organization. 25 years ago, I had a woman on a radio interview. I was working for a newspaper. They asked me to interview this woman from Philadelphia. Her name is Philadelphia. She is and what Philadelphia, she's out of Philadelphia. She came up with an idea. She said, Black women need to stick together. So what she did was she reached out to me. I'm living in Michigan. She says, I need help with an idea of what I want to do. The theme of what I'm doing is systems, healing systems. Because we got to get over our idiosyncrasies about each other, because as Tamika mentioned, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, Black women are attacked by everybody. Everybody. But when they came to me, said, in 1995, they had a big man march, and they brought all the men together to work on their issues. When the Brunch at that time, what do you think about I want my papaya. Get a couple sisters together and last. She said, no, actually, I need a little bit more help. I said, okay, well, I'll get sisters together in the state of Michigan. We'll come over to Brunch. She said, I need a little bit more help. So when it was all said and done, I had organized 17 states, including Canada, to converge on the now historic Million Woman March. Wow. It was awesome. And the reason I'm bringing this story up is in line with what Tamika's talking about. I have points here, but I'm actually going to speak about how I was able to get to where I was in my 40s to where I am now at 67. Being the first woman to be in the House of Representatives for the state of Michigan.
All right, all right.
Okay, some of the language. Anyway, real life. Well, no, it's true because Black women haven't been in the legislature. We haven't been represented. Now, you may get your Black women in Detroit because Detroit is 90% African American. But in Congress, we had Blacks. We had Hubert Price. We had Charlie Harris, I believe, went to and Clarence Phillips. They were those spots. But we never had a Black woman. Okay, it was like, okay, guess who's coming up here now, y'all? I actually heard one man say, they don't know what they said in the last. But I want to give tribute to some of the people who helped me become who I am. First of all, I was raised in poverty. I had 13 brothers and sisters. And getting commodities was a luxury. Sleeping with your own bed is a luxury. Okay, I don't know if you guys had that kind of thing. We had to speculate what kind of music was it. That's where I came from. But I also came from two very strong women. This is my my mother and my older sister might have helped me unless we did. I still
I left my phone in the car.
Berlin, you can do anything. It doesn't matter that you laugh. It doesn't matter that you fall. It doesn't matter that you're living. You can do it. You can do it. In my trajectory to the Million Woman March, I was mentored by the great. If you haven't read any of Angela Davis' books, I strongly encourage you to read what this sister went through in her struggles to get to where she is. I was also mentored by a woman by the name of Dr. G.C.W. Smith. She was the leader of the Elks. Now, everybody know the Elks over there on the hill, right? But there is an Elks Lodge. There was an Elks Lodge in every Black city in every state in this nation. And they predicated this stuff on bringing resources into our community. I was also mentored by, and this woman taught me a phrase I use all the time, the beautiful, the late beautiful Nancy Wilson. When she told me one day, and I was asking Nancy, what goals do you have in life? She said, I've earned the right to have more goals. What all these women have in common is what he served of us have in common in this room today. I want the person who has never suffered, struggled, been berated or belittled, or had to worry about your families or worry about your health. Somebody can raise your hand if you have never felt pain. And raise your hand if you've never felt pain being a black woman.
My.
I'm going to talk about two areas of very critical importance to you. First of all, what is it like to be a black woman in politics? Last April 30th, me and my colleagues were sitting in the Capitol doing our job. All of a sudden, we started hearing noise. Noise surrounded the entire building. I looked outside the window and there were AR-15s and nooses and swastikas and all kinds of things. People, a little kid with a black painted face saying, Candyman Ted. I looked at my colleagues, two of them were in their 20s, well, 30s, one in their 30s, one in their 20s, sisters. And they were terrified because they had no idea what was happening. Now, this really happened. You guys should know this because we had an insurrection again earlier this year in Washington, D.C., where Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence told me for the first time in her life she wanted to take a drink. Okay. Well, there was only 3 inches of a door between that mob that was left in the Capitol. You can't even take a sign in the Capitol, but this mob was left in the Capitol with rifles. And that 3-inch door kept them from happiness. It reminded me of this conference that I went to where I was one of 3 panelists like here. There was a woman that was LGBT, there was a woman who was Catholic, both men were white, and then there was me. So when I got a chance to introduce myself, I stood up and facetiously said, I want you guys to guess which one of us is LGBT, which one of us is Catholic, and which one of us is black. I really did that. And the day that they surrounded the Capitol with the insurrection, I said to myself, if they bust through that door, I really don't know which one of us is LGBT. My colleague Cynthia Johnson, and some of you guys may have seen this on Saturday Night Live. My colleague Cynthia Johnson was listening to Ruby Giuliani tell more lies than we can imagine, and she, being a sister from Detroit, straight from the hood, said, "You're lying." Google it. It's out there on Facebook Live. I mean, on Saturday Night Live. It's on YouTube. Okay. For Cynthia doing that, she got over 10,000 death threats. She's not, the governor wasn't the only person that was going to be executed. Every single one of us black women were, including me. I got a letter to my email that said the following. We know where you live. We know where your grandkids live. We're not going to tell you when we're going to get you, but we're going to get you. All of us are trained in the military. You're going to go to your car one day. I open the door and you're going to splatter your brains all over your car. That is my witness. But let me tell you something about my colleagues in Lance, our black colleagues. That didn't stop none of us from coming.
I know that's right.
Even Cynthia Johnson, she went up there sometimes and break the sister down. And see, you know, we all strong. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, we all strong. My mom raised a really strong child. But sometimes the pain is so bad. I watched this sister just, when she got one letter that I can't even repeat what it was. And she just broke down and cried. So when you talk about going, if you see a black woman, and Tamika Rasmussen, thank you for making that assertion about supporting. she brought it out. She brought out what I'm gonna say. If you got a sister, and it don't matter if she lives in Pontiac, or she lives in Frederick, or she lives in Lansing, or she lives in Detroit, if she's up there in Lansing, or she's in Washington, support her. Because she's fighting for you. She is fighting for you. And she's fighting against racism. And it's bad. I have experienced racism all my life. Like I said, I'm 67. I've been here a long time. Okay? But I've never experienced the degree of racism that I feel when I go to communities. Now let's talk about the duality of this situation. Because I just talked about racism, okay? Well, let's talk about sexism. How many of you have experienced being put down because you are a woman? Women are not allowed at the table. White women are put in their place. They're not, they don't have to worry about it. But black women are not given an opportunity at all. They put so many barriers, including our health. And I'm glad once again that Tamika Ramsey brought that up, and I'm sure you're going to speak on it. The resolution, that first resolution I did when I got up there, is I said, too many of our women, black women, and too many of our babies are dying in the hospital. We have the highest female mortality rate and infant mortality rate in the world. But we can do something about that by taking care of ourselves. But let's go back to sexism. Black women has the largest number of homicides against them, and it's usually perpetrated by their mates. You need to know that. That is a very strong statistic. And then if it's not a domestic violence, it's systemic violence. The sister who was shot, I can't call her name, the one in Louisville, y'all know her. The one that they busted through her door and shot her 8 times, and all she was doing was sleeping. Do your statistics on sexual violence. So I just talked about 2 things. And I have some papers here that I left, and I'm going to leave it to Mika, that if you guys want to see the actual video of the 1997 Million Woman March, give it to Mika. I'm going to send that link to her so she can watch it. Some of the great people, and I do want to share this story once again, one mentors who mentored me in my life. And this is where it's so critical, because I did most of this work when I was about y'all age. Y'all about 35 to 50, right? In that age right there, I did most of my work when I was that age. But I had another great mentor, and you see me kind of getting a little teary here, because when we did the Million Woman March, when she saw me, she walked up to me and she said, I'm looking at her like, she's looking at me like, I can't believe that you got me. But anyway, the late great Winnie Mandela. They put the lies on her, and that's what they'll do to women of color who reach a certain status in power. Okay? All of a sudden, the system, and I keep saying the system, I hope I'm communicating that clear to you, because we think it's just us got attitudes against us. No, the system will actually come in here and buy some of us, give us money to undermine our community. Winnie Mandela told me that Nelson Mandela was the love of her life, president of South Africa. But she had to leave him because the system tried to frame her for killing 2 boys in Soweto. The system. The attack on black women, the seed of this world. If you did your homework, you know that all life began in what continent? But the point I'm making here is Winnie Mandela, Dorothy Height. I got a picture on my Facebook page where Maxine Waters and I was in that march. Nancy Wilson, my mom and sister. All of these women told me something I'm going to tell every one of you in this room now. Tamika said it, I'm gonna reinforce it. You can do anything that you want to do, and if you're not doing it, you're choosing not to do it. Our future, our community depends on each and every one of you taking more whips on your back. Y'all remember that movie 12 Years a Slave, when a man got out there and put Pat's him to the tree and beat the flesh off her body? That's figuratively what we're going through right now. So all I'm saying is, in order for me to get to, I'll make out a few more minutes. In order for me to write the resolution that pointed to the disparities in maternal and infant health, in order for me to bring $37 million to the city of Pontiac, in order for me to bring $200,000 to the city of Pontiac, in order for me to get our brothers out of prison, in order for me to get up in Lansing and tell them, you cannot put our children in strict discipline academies, for me to tell them you cannot erase the history of black people in this country through critical race theory, I had to get there.
All right.
I had to get there. And I thank each and every one of you for helping me get there. So I fully support and thank what Tamika Ramsey is doing. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to stay for the rest of the day, but I put a card on the table. If you live in Pontiac, if you don't live in Pontiac, if you need our help, please contact us. And all we ask you to do is keep us in your prayers. Just keep us in your prayers. Thank you.
Everybody got a little card. We're going to be doing some raffles. So if you want the raffle, you got to fill out the card. We're going to come around and pick up the card. We're not talking about, we're talking about you ain't win and you ain't fill your card out. Somebody can wake up like I wish they would. That was my 2021. I am going to go ahead and we're going to go to our next speaker because we're really trying to make sure that we do not keep y'all here too long. I am going to introduce Cass, who is going to talk to us about reproductive justice. Once again, it is more to us than just abortion. Right? I was introduced to abortion at a young age. I have older cousins who just was like, I'm pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant, the man ain't gonna do it, I need to take care of myself. Right? So that hasn't been an issue. But I've also been at the hospital with the same cousins who were fighting for their lives after giving birth and not having adequate medical care. And that's scary. And so Cass is going to talk to us about what that means and what our power is, because it's not just wait for somebody to take care of us. Cass, thank you.
Hello, everybody. The Father again in prayer and love and life. So I am Cassie. I am the founder of International Women Network. I am the first ever Black organizing program manager in San I am also the daughter of Mary Alice Jones and the granddaughter of Essie. They're not my ancestors who ushered me into every station I go. I want to bring you into this station. I want to thank you all for being here, for this, your journey to this space, because the world is what it is. It's crazy out there. For the fact that you found the time and energy to come to this space and be with each other. I just want to honor that. So I am the founder of International Women Network. And that is a lifetime initiative-based nonprofit that centers on Black justice. or juicy justice or curvy justice, whatever you want to do that. That's what it's been on. And so I want to just lift LaDonna because she was like 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. She was part of my first ever fashion show that I produced. And she tore the runway down, like she always does. But I so good to see you today. But I started that work because I wanted to make sure that when I was in my first fashion show, people that were there didn't care about what I wore, didn't care about who I wore. It was more about the feeling they got about seeing reflections of themselves on the runway. So I was just like, well, I need to provide that same type of support for people who look like me, in between this traveling show that just came and left. I want to keep doing this work. So I started the network here in the U.S. and I've produced initiatives in Nigeria and Bali and in Japan and Indonesia. And so one thing that ties us all together is the fact that we are trying to fight for visibility. We're trying to fight for just our voices and agency over our bodies and the perceptions of beauty and who we are as women and as people of South. And so when I started this work, I didn't center myself. And it's because when you're an advocate, you center everybody else. You try to make sure everybody else is good. Because if you're able to do this work, that means you're privileged to be able to do that work. So I just want to make sure I center everybody else and just center myself in the work. But I knew there was something that was like understood in spaces that I held in that advocacy because I saw a lot of whiteness there. I saw a lot of white people who were the larger voices there. And I wondered why that was when I know that all on social media, all you saw was 5 Black women, standing up and showing and being positive, body positive. And I knew that was how the movement was happening online. So how is this that in advocacy spaces, white women are offering the conversation? So I wanted to do some abolition work. I want to see how we get some curvy bodies on standard runways in Detroit. So I said, I'm going to work with a stylist. But I didn't sign up to be a stylist. I said, but that was my intention. But someone called me out the blue and said, could you be a stylist for this show? It was one of the biggest shows in Detroit at that time. And so I signed up as a stylist. And so I get there in my cutest baby fat that I had. And I got there and I was the biggest girl there. And there were like a sea of very thin women, mostly white, but very thin women. And nobody was trying to check for me. Nobody was trying to see why I was there or who I was trying to connect with. And so I said, well, at the time it was like a whole weekend. So that first day was on the street. It was like a whole street performance. And so I said, let me go inside where they're staging this event and see if I can find a head stylist to see if I can just get involved. And so I went in there, and I was standing on the street for at least a half an hour. So I went in there, and I was like, hey, I'm here as a stylist. And she looked up and down. She's like, okay, let me take you where you need to be. And she took me right back out where I stood on the street. And so I was like, yeah, okay. So as the queen of polo, Tamika Ramsey always said, you have to pick a struggle sometimes when you come into this space. Like, was it because I was Black that she didn't want me to be in there? Was I fat? What is it that she just made her bring me back to where I started? So I went home. I said, I'm not coming back to get some people. I'll do something else. And then someone called me. Now, they didn't know who I was. It was just somebody that they voiced on the phone that needed some more capacity that day. So I went the next day, and this time it was inside an upscale restaurant. And so all of the beautiful people, all of the thin people, were now eye candy for everybody else. They were up front. So the coveted spaces for styling and experience, and that came to me. Because I was the only one that wasn't presentable to be in front of the house. But I got to the back of the house and I got so much experience. I learned from one of the lead stylists there who then helped me through my first 2 years of events. I gained so much knowledge and understanding. But I wondered what it was that made her so easily just dismiss me. Because it was just like second nature to her. To just, take it back out to the street where she thought I belonged. And so I started to look at some history because, nothing is new. It's just new faces. And so that led me to the work of Dr. Sabrina Strings. Dr. Sabrina Strings has a book called Theory of the Black Body, the origin of black phobia. And so in it, it just laid bare everything that I felt that was in my DNA, but now I knew. Because everything in this country does not have righteous origin, right? Ever since we stepped on this, our foot on this soil and enslaved, we've been fighting for agency for our bodies, fighting for our lives. And so I knew it had to be some kind of racially motivated type of thing. But what I learned is, like in the 1800s, when, the racial, social construction of race started to happen, where you had to make a determination as to who deserved the best out of this country. It wasn't the black people, of course, but because there was so much that happened with mixing of races, because of rape, that was happening by people that enslaved us, we didn't always look black people. So then it was about how we lived our lives. So of course, black people you had to be considered like, slobber and uneducated. And of course, because of the food that we had to eat, because there was nothing left, it was more fatty or whatever. So therefore, we were more voluptuous and more fat. So therefore, that's how you now determine who is the people who deserve less. Because we need to make sure that we keep these people in their place. And that is the basis of how fat phobia began in this country. That is how it's ingrained in our medical bias that we have. It's ingrained in our reproductive bias that we have. It is all connected. So when you go into your healthcare setting and the doctors look at you and try to treat the disease of obesity before you talk about the headache that you're having, it is based on a construct that is really about insurance, about how to bill you for the discussion, not necessarily centering on the needs of the patient when they come in. When you go in and they find it like an inconvenience to have a gown that fits you, or when they can't find the arm cut that's your size. All these things inform how you go in to seek care, because if you feel embarrassed about going in to see your doctor, if you think that you feel shame for not being able to lose the weight that they're suggesting you should lose, then you don't want to go to see that doctor. You feel that they're actually having these thoughts negatively about you when you go into those settings. So that informs how you seek care. It informs how you move in the world, because when you are a person of size and when you suffer because of that, you automatically understand how much space you take up in the room and how much that space imposes on other people. You make decisions about if you are able to fly, with the seat that is on the end, or if you're going to inconvenience the next person next to you. All of that feeds into how you live your life. All of that informs how you raise your children, how you seek love, and how you seek affection, because the fact is that you have is also a fetish for some people. So you have to wonder if the conversation you have with the person that you are feeling at the moment is because of you, because of the fluffiness you see. So all these things play into how we live our lives, how we have the stigma around the choices that we make. And so compound that with being a person who actually had an abortion, which I have. And so having said that to groups of people, sometimes that's still scary, because you often are still judged by the personal choices that you make. So that in seeking knowledge about sexual health and great relationships is something that you really don't do because you have nowhere to go, because you don't want to have the shame of having to have a conversation, of having to find out what it is about how your body works. I'm a woman of faith, and I know that I couldn't tell my mother and my family that I had an abortion, because I don't want people, first of all, to think wrong about my mother, how she raised me. I don't want people to feel that I wasn't a person of faith or that I didn't love God. So I kept it to myself until I was called to testify in front of the State House of Representatives. trying to fight the abortion. But my story is my own. I don't owe my truth to anybody else. But I knew in that moment that my voice had power. But I knew in that moment that my voice had power and that it could affect and support the lives of other people. No one has the right to legislate what happens to my life. No one has the right to dictate what it is that I do with my life because, and even people of faith, the compassionate side of your faith should be able to help you, help the next person make the best decision that they need to make for their life. This system, which is steeped in white supremacy, in Michigan, it is the air that we breathe. We know that these systems are not made for us to thrive. Living free of violence is reproductive justice. Being able to have clean water is reproductive justice. Being able to have good food is reproductive justice. Being able to have a place to stay, a place to raise your family is reproductive justice. All of that ties into how we thrive. And these systems are not designed for that to happen. So what do we do about that? We are the ones offering this oppression. What we do is we organize. We lift our voice. We come together like we are today with the Black Women's Roundtable, with any organization or any group of people or any person that wants to do abolition work just within their own communities, within their own family dynamic. Because liberation happens when you're able to talk to somebody in your family to offer your truth. Sometimes the ways in which our family dynamics are so steeped in the ways in which society has deemed worthiness, that you don't know how to even show up for your own family, in your own life. And racism is not, the values of racism is not held just for white people. The values of racism is also held within us sometimes. If we look at somebody and we think that they need to, tighten up and need to deserve whatever they get if they are dressed a certain way. That's upholding the ways of white supremacy shows up in representatively politics, making sure that people show up like is presentable. That's white supremacy. The perfectionism of it all, how we have to go into work and perform 100,000 times more than your white counterpart. That's white supremacy work culture. All of that is seeking white supremacy. It's all by design. And sometimes you don't feel like, that's it. Maybe I need to do more. Maybe I need to work harder. But mediocre white men do everything all day. And they don't have any consequences. And we're going to suffer those consequences because we, as Black women, as Tamika mentioned and as Representative Carter mentioned before, we are weathered. We're weathered because we have the historical legacy of trauma. And that bleeds into every aspect of our existence. And it also informs how we raise our children and how we do our work in the community, how we advocate for other people. And I just want to encourage you to just listen to what's happening in your community around like the new bans that are happening across this country versus the Texas ban. But you pay attention to that because it seems like it's far away, but it's coming to Michigan. The Texas ban on abortion at 6 weeks when most people don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. What they did was they also put a bounty on people's bodies, where if you believe that someone is accessing abortion or seeking an abortion or thinking about abortion, you can take them to court and sue them for $10,000. That's a bounty on your rules. If you are an Uber driver in Texas and you are taking someone to Planned Parenthood, you can sue that Uber driver for aiding and abetting someone who's seeking an abortion. So that is happening in Texas. The Supreme Court just recently decided to let it still fly until they hear a case about it. And Representative Carter brought up Breonna Taylor. The Attorney General of the state of Kentucky just had a case October 11th in front of the Supreme Court around how law enforcement can step into abortion cases and how they can enforce abortion laws in the state, setting the precedent for when And if something happens and we lose our right to access all of our reproductive health, they can step in and enforce it. It's really systemic. It's a method that is you're together on, and that is something that is happening here in Michigan, in Hillsdale, Michigan. They wanted to create that place as a sanctuary city for the unborn. Meaning anybody that wants to seek abortion or talk about abortion can't do it within their city limits. And all of these laws and all of these things always affect people of color more, Black women specifically, or Black birthing people specifically. And we also have to be more inclusive in how we talk about these things. Birthing people means that trans men also need to have agency. Because if we don't talk about, like, if we have, like, health, about reproductive health, we have someone identifies as a trans man, he also is in need of birthing consultation. He also needs reproductive justice. He needs to be able to go to his provider and talk about the ways in which he needs to seek care for himself. That includes prostate cancer, it includes all those things. So I just want to encourage you all to kind of unpack some of the ways that you view each other. If you see someone in the lexicon, like say Lizzo in a sheer dress when she went to see Cardi B at her party. But then a few years ago we saw Rihanna in the same dress. We celebrated her. It's not the dress, it's the body that's in it. So look past your privilege and your own biases and support and love on each other, because we need it. And we are like really waiting for an opportunity, most people, to be able to be supportive of each other. We just have to allow people to do that. That's my song.
First of all, I want to thank Cassie because she has made it comfortable for me to talk about reproductive justice. Black women, it's like that happens in your house, in your room. We don't talk about it. And when it affects one of us, like we can share that experience with each other and hold each other through those experiences. And we go through that trauma by ourselves, right? How many of us, for whatever reason, have had to have an abortion and had to deal with it privately, like physically, emotionally? No one should have to hold that trauma. And she has made it comfortable for me to even start to have those conversations with people that I love. Being able to support people, taking away the judgment, right? Because I can't say why you did it. I can't say it was right or wrong. To this day, my doctor tells me if I get pregnant, like it's either be the life of me or that unborn child. That my doctor has made that very clear. So I'm doing everything that I can to not get pregnant. If it happens, then I know what I have to do. That's not an easy decision for anyone. So for somebody else to feel like they can make that decision on our behalf, or for a woman to have to make that decision in private and suffer in private, and she has made that she has changed that for me and so many other women, and so I really appreciate it. And she is beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. We got some aromatherapy for you to take care of yourself as well. I love you. Thank you. All right. And I am going to ask Stephanie Williams, not his sister. I'm like, yes, is it Williams? Okay, I can say more Williams. This sister is bad, okay? She's from Kalamazoo, but you may have heard about her over here. If they ain't doing right by Black women, she cussing them out. When I'm in a room with her, I can sit down and be quiet. I promise y'all. And you know that's hard for me. She was an elected official in Kalamazoo, and no people wouldn't treat Black people right over there, so she created an organization. Her mother has created an amazing organization. They are fighting for Black people on the ground every single day. And they are doing it in ways that it's not just about getting out to vote. It is about health. They have had COVID clinics on the ground. They have been giving away laundry soap, diapers. They are taking care of people first and then talking about politics second. But that is her heart. And I appreciate her drove all the way over here. She is the state representative for Black Voters Matter. Stephanie, please come up.
I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this way. Oh, wait, y'all don't eat too much. Y'all full. Hey, y'all stand up. Ooh, something. Come on, sis. We didn't go do anything. All right. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Hallelujah. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Oh, we didn't have it in Detroit. Oh my God. Every time I go somewhere, people say, where you from? And I say, Michigan. And they say, oh, you from Detroit. No, y'all can't be caught like this in Detroit. All right, we just gonna get to it. Y'all ain't gonna work with me. I see. First of all, I just want to say happy Sunday to every one of you all. I am Stephanie Williams. Most people know me as Stephanie Moore. I served in public office for a little over 15 years, and of course, as an elected leader, I was going by my former name. But my husband said that it's over. You are Williams. However, he did go to pick up my prescription the other day, and they told me it wasn't there. There wasn't no thing. He said, Stephanie, they didn't have nothing for Stephanie Moore. I said, because you told me I'm a Williams. I want to say a couple things. One, I want you guys to take away a few things that I'm going to say. One is the strength and resilience of Black women. Nothing goes on. Nothing is sustained. Nothing builds without us. Without our vision, us putting our hands to it, us loving the folks that are with us, that are coming along with us. So if you leave with anything today, know that it's about us. And the us is Black women. I was taught by my grandmother a long time ago, Stephanie, everywhere you go, you take a sister with you. So I found out my optician is a Black woman, Colorful Roots. Everything I buy from my hair, to my shoes, to my lingerie comes from a sister. And I take her car everywhere I go, all across the country. And when I don't have any cars, hell, I take the sisters with me. Thank you, my girlfriend. That's a wild child that was running out here in the morning. That's my granddaughter. Where she get it from? I want to tell you about a couple of things, and then I want to tell you how you can actually get involved and do more extraordinary work than what you're already doing. I am from Kalamazoo. I have the opportunity to work with two organizations, actually. One is Black Voters Matter. We are a national organization. We have a 501c3, a 501c4, and a PAC. So what does that mean, right? That means that we can, across the country, identify agencies and organizations and individuals and entrepreneurs and business owners, and we can actually help them to build capacity. So for Oakland Forward, Pontiac Forward, our own Black Wall Street, the Michigan Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and so many other organizations in the state of Michigan, we actually give them what? Any guess? Money! How do you build capacity without money? So we look for agencies and organizations and businesses and individuals to help you build capacity in doing what you already do. So I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, I need for you to do X, Y, and Z so you can get that. You're going to say, this is what we do. We've been doing this. We got a history of doing this. This is how we touch, love, teach, and empower Black folks in our community. Can you support us? And more than likely, our answer is going to be yes. So we don't just give out money just to give out money. We want you to build power. We want your business to grow. We want you to have more Black folks on the payroll. We want you to be able to give them paid benefits, paid leave. We want us to have the same thing that we are fighting all across the country for. We want to have it right here at home. And then we partner with all of our organizations. So we say, hey, you know, what do you need? We can do printing for you, text messaging. We can send caravans of cars, volunteers, and a little bit of swag. You know, y'all got to look good. You know, sisters got to go somewhere looking good. So we partner with our organizations. And a lot of the technical stuff that most businesses and organizations don't have, we provide it. So for example, today, Tamika did this event. We have the ability to text every Black woman in this county to say, y'all come have brunch with Tamika and the Black Women's Roundtable today. Most of our businesses and organizations and agencies that we work with, especially if they are Black owned and led, we don't necessarily have that capacity. So at Black Voters Matter, that's what we want you to do. We want you to build capacity. So if you're doing a little soiree, you got a day party, y'all about to turn up. I heard somebody back there popping bottles earlier. Everybody, I heard the champagne bottles popping. We want to give you the ability to do that and then engage people in a very meaningful way as well. I saw something back there that was just like a little hook, Tamika, that you hang your purse on. And on that little package, it actually has the day of the election on it. And I was like, now that is cool. I took one too. Just so you know, I didn't steal it. I took it. So those are little ways that you can actually inform your community, the people that you talk, touch, love, work, and empower every single day, so that you can also build power within your family and your community as well. So I don't want you to think that, oh, you got to be this big agency and organization, you got to have all this paperwork. First of all, I don't want to deal with nobody's paperwork. We don't want you to have, we're not going to give you a lot of barriers. What we are going to do is we're going to partner with you to make sure that you have the resources, the tools, and the support to do what you have to do. So in order to get support from Black Voters Matter, you do not have to be a 501c3. You do not have to have all this and all that and the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s behind your name. The only requirement that I have is that you have a bank account that is a business bank account. Now what you do with all that other stuff, they ain't none of my business. Other than if you do the work you'll tell me. But that's all. I don't want you guys to think that you got to be all of these extra superhero dramatic folks. You don't. We want to work with every person, Black folks. We want to help you and support you and work with you. Yes, I'm extremely biased. I deal with the microaggressions and racism and this and that with all the other folks. I ain't got time. I'm going with the sisters out. So that's what we do. And we do this 365 days out the year. We don't just do it a month before the election, 6 months before the election, because your business is working every single day, right? We know, we understand that, so we got to make sure you sisters got what you need on an ongoing basis. Now, how we tie that to stuff that's happening, if you are operating a business, you probably need some incentives from your local government. You probably need some incentives from agencies and organizations. So that's why we want to keep supporting and working with you so that you can get what you need every day going forward. So I get to work with folks all the time doing this amazing work. I want to shift gears just a little bit and tell you about one of my favorite organizations in Kalamazoo, where I'm born and raised, that's doing a tremendous amount of work, especially around reproductive justice and what we need as women, right? When we started doing work, it was founded by my mother, who by the grace of God just celebrated 31 years of sobriety. Oh, wow. We grew up in the most dysfunctional family, mama getting high. I think my dad was getting high, I don't know. And stuff was happening all around the world, right? So I ended up, my mother was trying to get clean and do whatever she wanted to do. I ended up going off to Texas, living with my dad, and God forbid, was molested as a child. Come back to Kalamazoo, mama still getting high, still running around with Taj Mahal, wherever she was. But as an adolescent, I grew up one of the most vulnerable, exposed, and just harmed children that I can imagine, right? And I'm telling y'all this to tell you that we can do this. Remember what I said, resilient, right? Whatever we've been through, we've had the ability, through the grace of God, to overcome, overpower, be empowered, empower others, and keep doing what God has called us to do. I've had the opportunity to work with my mom now, who's now clean, that she and her friend take everything that they learned on their journey to recovery and transfer that to other women who are trying to get clean as well. And then they said, we can't just work with the mamas, we got to support the men who love them and the children that have them they left behind. Children like me who went through all of this and all of that while my mama was trying to figure out, I don't even know what she was trying to figure out. But thank God she figured it out. So I want you all to know that we spend a lot of time helping women heal. We know that for generations, There's things we haven't talked about, we haven't processed, we hadn't had a chance to even teach our children how to break those generational curses. But now that we figured it out, we're doing it. And we're doing it in a way where we're including holistic practices. How do you just breathe? A lot of times we know folks that go to work and get to going off and cussing out folks, not necessarily because of that one incident at work. That was just a straw, it broke the camel's back, right? All this other stuff that we haven't healed and processed through. So we do yoga, we do breathing techniques, we do mindfulness, we do all of these things. We just learned, Tiffany, how to bless our head every day. We teaching each other how to pray consistently. You know, everybody get on Facebook, pray for me, and we do the little praying hand. Ain't nobody prays nothing. But we're saying this is how we tap into our inner strength, right? And then we coupled it with counselors and life coaches. So we have a cohort of folks who are actually going through a counseling program that includes the holistic health coaches, life coaches, as well as therapists. So for the first time than any of us ever known, we're getting a really holistic approach to how we become better, healed individuals in Kalamazoo. I couldn't be more proud of this work. And then what we telling folks is, you gotta go to your doctor. You gotta go get your annual exam, your breast exam, you gotta get your head exam. You gotta go to the doctor's system. We gotta deal with all these issues from diabetes to obesity to mental health to all of these things. And then we're actually showing them how you do that in a meaningful way. And how? We gave most of the folks we work with the ACEs, which is the Adverse Childhood Experiences. We gave them the ACEs test so that they know what their level of trauma is, so they can take that to their medical doctor and get a medical plan according to their trauma. Not according to what, you know, I fell and I hit my hand the other day. No, the trauma that I've been dealing with for the last 49 years. And that's how we want to really work to help people get healed. And as we're doing that work, we're seeing more individuals engaged. They're going to events, they're volunteering, they're serving on boards, they're serving on committees, they're opening businesses and sustaining those businesses because now we're using tools from everywhere we can. And that's what we want to continue to see happen. And so it's super important that as you all are showing up, that you bring a sister with you. That you bring a sister that's at home, that's not doing nothing. Even if we got to wait till she get out of church or fix, you know, the hubby and the kids' dinner, bring her with you. If she can't come in this space, then take what you get from here today back and share it with somebody else. Who's moving the world is sisters. It ain't Kamala and Washington. Well, she do a little bit. I don't know. She do. But it's the sisters that's on the ground that get Representative Carter and Kamala Harris in spaces where we need them to be. But it's us. When I tell y'all that it's about us, I promise you, it's about us. Know your power, harness that power, and use it. Not just on your baby daddy. But you really got to use it. So there's a couple of things I want you to know. How many of you guys know that there's an election coming up? Everybody's registered to vote. Yes. Everybody in your house that's eligible is registered to vote. Yes. Everybody that's eligible in your house votes. Yes. Okay, because some of us, and I was guilty at one point, some of us didn't. I was going to vote. I don't remember the dude's name, baby daddy. He never voted a day in his life. So we got to make sure that we start at home, close to us, to engage those folks to vote. And we got to make sure that we have people to vote for. Even if you don't want to run for office, even if you don't want to be out in the front or whatever, there's things that you can do, that you can help do events that introduce people that we know support us so that they can get the support that they need. We can help to raise money. We can help to, get everything that a person needs to get there. And then we got to support them. What Representative Carter talked about is real. When we get in that room, I'm going to tell y'all, as an elected official for 15 years, I was elected to the city commission 15 years ago. And the first thing I knew off the rip, this is why we don't get what we need. I was the only Black woman. I was the youngest person in the room and the only one that came from the hood. How the hell did I get to city hall? I don't even know. The only one that came from the neighborhood that knew us, how we move, what makes us move, the only one. And it was a fight every single day. And they paint you out to be crazy. Oh, she this, she radical, and Tamika ain't mine. I cussed them out. I did. But we got, I know, right? It was out of school. Release. But you gotta have the support from the community. That if nothing else, even if you don't even go down to City Hall, I should be able to come back to my neighborhood and sit down and let my hair down with my homegirls and just know it's gonna be all right. So we gotta create some safe spaces for folks. And we gotta pull the coattail, because it's a black folk, it's a folk that look like us, that ain't us. And they in some spaces, and we check them too, right? We ain't gonna harm them, but we gonna check that out. So I'm saying this to tell you that we have a lot of opportunities to do even more extraordinary work. Now you know you got resources. You got organizations like Tamika with the Black Women's Roundtable. You got all of these agencies and organizations that's checking for us, that are now writing checks to us. And that's what we need, right? And then we also gotta have a system here. We're not gonna like everybody all the time, but we gotta know that we're connected to each other in a lot of different ways, right? So, will you all do me a favor? Tiffany told me this, and I forgot. If you got a cell phone, take out your cell phone. I have a lot of great things I want to bring to give you guys today. I brought some T-shirts and a whole bunch of swag and a bunch of stuff. And it's free, with the exception of the cost of one phone call. So you got to send me a text message. So go to your text message, type in the number 797979. 797979 is the number. In the subject, you're going to put two words, we matter, and then hit send. 797979, we matter, and hit send. And what you did is you just opted in to Tamika. So now when she has something that's going on, or whatever it is, trunk or treat is coming up and all kinds of stuff, you will all now begin to get information about what's happening on the state and in Detroit and on the national level and how you can get involved. So when y'all get ready to go to the table and pick up all the free stuff, just show them the people. You should have got a little text back. Show them the text, and the ladies will give you all of the stuff. Everything that we have is always free. But you just got to, you didn't text back? You will. You will. You're good. So listen. This is what I'm gonna leave you with. The reason why it's super important that you all stay engaged and bring some other folks is because we have to build so that we can continue to build power. We want to make sure that we have folks in leadership positions, even if it's not elected. Some of the most strongest, powerful organizations are nonprofits, the YWCA, the Salvation Army, all of those organizations that we always go on looking for, that be checking for us, but not writing checks to us. We need to be in those spaces and in those positions. And our neighborhood associations, all of these groups, we need to have some type of knowledge and or presence so that we can actually affect change, right? And so that's what I want you all to know. By opting in on that 797979 number, now you can get more access to information. And don't try to do everything, we don't expect you to. But the one thing that you're most passionate about, we hope that you really will engage even more, right? So I appreciate your time. I'm gonna be here this afternoon. If you got questions, if you need anything from me, but what I need for you to do is you gotta stay with this sister. You gotta stay with her. When she call, answer. When she text, respond. When she invites you, show up and bring some more sisters with you. Because it's about us, right? It's about us. I love you, ladies.
We got some aromatherapy because you know you be working all the time. All the time. Also got you some hand sanitizer so you can take home too. But I just really appreciate Stephanie once again because she is the one telling you everybody who looks like us ain't so us. And Stephanie be hair like y'all see her cleaned up today. She hair back, Vaseline on, Timbos on, ready to fight. Like for us, right? Because sometimes people show up saying they're trying to help us because they look like us, and they don't. And they don't. And I appreciate that because Stephanie be tired. And she get beat up a lot because sometimes it's like, well, you ain't, she gets that you ain't for black people because you ain't support black people when they're not helping our neighborhood. right? And so I love you. I love you. Thank you. She is amazing. Thank you for driving. Tell me. I know, right? I did it for the champagne. Now, our last speaker is not our lead speaker because we got these beautiful handouts. Y'all got a whole packet in your thing, handout about talking about health and mental health and physical wellness. And I was excited to bring Elizabeth here, one, because I don't practice this, right? I'm half dead, half I can't walk around like zombie apocalypse, like God gonna fix it. And he did. Like he didn't send me a doctor, he didn't send me a trainer. Look at her. He sends us. The universe sends us what we need. Do we open our doors to it? Do we listen to our body when we're not feeling well? No, we don't. But Elizabeth is going to tell us what we need to do and then how to advocate for ourselves. Have you been to the doctors and they talking at you? And then you just sitting there like, well, that's not really what's wrong, but I don't want to speak up. Like about your own body. And so I was looking at her presentation last night. I ain't gonna lie, I was stapling. And so I saw something, but it's like we have to learn how to advocate for ourselves. So I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna let her talk. Go right ahead. Thank you.
All right, hello, Queen.
Hi.
I just want to say this room is filled with so many beautiful women, all shades, all colors, so it's really a blessing. But before we get started, we have some phenomenal speakers. Let's just kind of reset ourselves here. So I just want you just to take a deep inhale, take a deep breath out. Let's do it one more time. A big inhale, deep sigh out, and one more time. Big breath in. Deep sigh out. So you just let that stuff go. It's like that movie Waiting to Exhale where, we gotta feel like we gotta wait, but we really don't have to wait. You guys have that power to breathe. I like to laugh, so you'll probably see me moving around every which way, but you can follow along with me. There's PowerPoint presentation because I believe there's multiple ways of learning visually, hearing, and seeing. And with this beautiful package together, don't take this home and hide it. Make sure you're reading these. Make sure you're utilizing these resources here because a lot of hard work went into it. So what I'm going to talk about today is Black women's health and putting yourself first. So making sure that you are taking care of you. So I work in the healthcare space and I'm on a lot of different committees, maternal health, and advocating for women's health and access to care. And sometimes, like many of our speakers have said, I might be the only person telling you. I might be the only person who's one, too. So it's like, it's very important that, we speak up for ourselves when it comes to our health care. And it's very important that, if you don't feel comfortable, nothing's wrong with saying, hey, can you explain that? And if you don't like that answer, it's okay to find another answer. It's okay to ask multiple questions because this is your body and you have that right to choose what's best for you. So today we're going to talk about putting your health first. Can I get a put your health first?
Put your health first.
All right, can you tell your neighbor, put your health first?
Put your health first.
All right, no, at the table, can you ask your neighbor, like, have you got your checkup?
You got your checkup? Yes. I had all my annuals.
There might be a wide range of answers. You may have went to the doctor, you may have not went to the doctor, maybe if there's a doctor. COVID's here, COVID's real. So, maybe it's just, I don't feel like comfortable going in. Or maybe you're looking for somebody that fits your needs or addresses your needs or you feel like is going to represent you. That might be a person of color, it might be not a person of color, but you want to make sure that person has your best interest in mind and is really going to advocate for you and what you have to say. So I'm going to keep going through these PowerPoints, but I want to start off with, some stats, some numbers. Sometimes we got to keep it 100, keep it real, and we want to see visually, right? You want to see, you want to know, and sometimes it's not until you hear it or you see it that you're like, dang, for real. So listen to this. So in 2006, African American women were 10% less likely to have been diagnosed with breast cancer. However, they were almost 40% more likely to die from breast cancer as compared to non-Hispanic white women. And this also includes white women as well in the statistic. So we're more likely to be diagnosed with it and to die from it. And sometimes we don't even know that we have it. We don't even know what's happening in our body. And sometimes it's just listening to our bodies. and getting accustomed to it. Sometimes it's just taking a moment to breathe. Your body tells you everything, but you just have to hear what it's saying, right? We gotta be in this constant communication, constant checking. Another statistic that was very, very interesting was nearly half of Black women have a total cholesterol number that is way too high. You know, you may not even know what your cholesterol number is, but make sure that you are getting familiar with your checkups and kind of check in on your health in that perspective. You know, as Black women, you know, we're catered towards higher cholesterol, and that's just coming up, that's just, you know, generational racism and kind of our upbringing and kind of what's in our DNA. So we're predisposed to certain conditions. We're predisposed to some health conditions, heart disease, stroke. That's prevalent in a lot of our bloodlines, even high blood pressure. So we want to make sure that you're taking that first step. We want to make sure that you're walking through the door. If you need somebody to go with you, I definitely would go. But you want somebody with you to advocate for you and support you at all times. Can I get an advocate?
Advocate.
All right. There we go. So moving on right along, one more statistic that was really interesting to me that we don't really talk about is 2/3 of blindness and visual impairment cases occur in women, and a lot of these cases were Black women too. So not only is it important to take care of yourself physically, right? Don't forget about your vision, right? I met a lady who, you know, had a health complication and lost her vision overnight. And it's like, you never know how your life could shift or change just by one moment. You know, one thing, you get in a car accident, you never know. So you always want to make sure that you're taking care of you and having those checkups. So they're going to move into another space. I like to move around a lot, so don't mind me. That mover is well women visits. So well women visits is like another word for like going to do your annual physical, doing your checkup, right? So I have this on here too, kind of like what is it, the goal, the timing, the focus. So when you go to that annual checkup, you're looking for, okay, disease prevention, screenings, health promotion, relationships, family relationships, and kind of going in deeper. And then your timing, you're looking at annually improving delivery of recommendations, and then build a physician-patient relationship, or PCMH. And I wrote down what that means. Because sometimes the doctor will talk in acronyms and things, and you're like, can you break that down for me? Can you go a little bit deeper? So below that, PCMH is basically that patient-centered medical home. And that's basically where you're in the center, and then there's a support team around you. So, you know, there's nurse practitioners, there's a doctor, there might be a nutritionist, but you're the focus. It's all about you. Can I say all about you? All right. So it's all about you. And when it comes to your health, it's always all about you. And never let anybody tell you that differently. Your health matters, your view matters, everything about you is important. And then one of the focuses about going to these checkups is making sure that you're documenting your healthy habits, making sure you're getting a physical exam, and then maybe they're setting some goals. You know, as women, we're constantly taking care of everybody else. Before you came here, you may have cooked dinner, you may have took the kids somewhere, you may have had a husband, relationship, whoever, but you're always putting people first. But why not put you first? Why not put your health first? It's okay to say, hey, today I need a mental health day, and it's all good. Why should you feel sorry about it, right? Why should you feel any way different because you need to take a pause to reset for you? Because you matter and you're important. So if something happens to you, jobs are going to keep going, you're going to keep making money, right? People are going to still do what they do. But the most important thing is you, right? So I want you guys to remember that you are important, you're valuable, your health is very important. So we're going to keep going. So I talked about that patient-centered medical home. It's that nice little colorful circle where the patient's in the center. So really, you're in that center focus, you're focusing on your health needs and coordinates patient care. So maybe that's for you when it comes to that healthcare setting. Maybe you're focusing on that patient-centered medical home where it's all about you, and it's okay to be all about you because you're important and you matter. So when you go into, preparing for this visit, you're scheduling your visit, you're checking in your costs, you're bringing a list of questions and medications. So if there's some things that you're taking, bringing those, making sure you're asking questions. And sometimes maybe it's even listening to your body that maybe you're on some medications and maybe that medication is not the right medication for you. And we want to have those verbal dialogues. You should be able to talk to your provider. If you can't, that provider might not be the right one for you. And it's okay to say, please, I'm out the door. I need a second opinion. And make sure that you are doing those things because, again, you're important and you're matter and you're very valuable. So we're going to move right along. Some things I have a couple questions in that PowerPoint, it's the page of what to discuss with your provider, it's kind of like slide 7. So some things that you might discuss with your provider is like healthy choices, you know, staying active, you know, maybe you're trying to kick the habits of cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, having that dialogue with them. Maybe you're talking about, you know, your mental health, your mood and emotions. And as Black women, you know, we carry so much within. We store our issues in our tissues. It could be generational. It could be like, you know, you're carrying the weight of the world. I was on Facebook and there was a young mother who was 21 in Texas. And she was a single mother raising 2 kids by herself. And, you know, she did Facebook posts like she's all alone. She has no one to help her raise these 2 kids. Man was nowhere in the picture. He was there to have the baby. Then when the baby came, he was like, bye. So this young lady felt that her life wasn't valuable. She didn't matter. She actually ended up committing suicide. So to say that is you never know what somebody is going through. And it's cool to feel like, okay, you know, I'm down a day, this and that. It's cool to have those expressions. But it's not really a scary thing to ask for help. It's not really a scary thing to reach out. And I encourage you to reach out. And I encourage you to check on our Black women, our Black sisters, because let's keep it real. When we go to work every day, we deal with a lot of microaggressions. We deal with a lot in the workplace. You know, we deal a lot driving here. Somebody might cut you off in the grocery store. Some people think they own the store and they're just going to take off in front of you. So we deal with so much. So, you know, sometimes like life is hard. As a Black woman, we don't have a day off. We don't have time to be like, okay, you know, when people say, you know, we have walking in shoes, they don't know what it's like to be a Black woman unless you're Black, and unless you live my life, and unless you walk in my path. So to just kind of speak about that is, you know, making sure that you're taking care of yourself from a mental health perspective. And in our community, it's like we have these stigmas that we talk to a therapist, you know, oh, she's crazy, or oh, she's this and that. And there's nothing wrong with having these dialogues with someone, because the worst thing is to suffer in silence. And the worst thing is to say that you're not valuable and you don't matter, because you do matter and create God's image. You're beautiful, no matter what shape, body style, body type. You're here with a purpose and passion. So I'm going on my soapbox, so I'm going to keep it going to the next slide. So moving along in this presentation, if you're following with me, I wrote down a list of the 10 must-have tests for Black women. So a lot of these are familiar, and some of these tests you might not really think about. And that's your hearing tests, your immunizations, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your BMI, which is your body mass index, as well as your weight, eye exam, STD screenings, thyroid check, Hpd check, and your mammogram. So those are really 10 important tests for women of color. And then I go down to break that a little bit further. So when you go into your hearing test, moving along to slide 11, when you look at this, Black women are much less likely to have hearing problems than new study shows. But then it also says that more than 12% of people in their 20s and 30s have already had some form of hearing loss. So you may not even realize your hearing may have decreased a little bit. So getting your hearing checked out right away and making sure you're checking with that. Another thing is like immunization. So one interesting factor is, according to the CDC, African American adults are less likely than white adults to have received some of their most basic vaccines and up to date on the vaccine. So making sure that you're reviewing those. Some last 10 years, some change, so making sure that you're up to date so that you can prevent yourself from being exposed to certain viruses. One of the biggest things is blood pressure. So Black women were more likely to develop hypertension earlier in their lives. So, you know, once every 2 years, if it's 120 and 80 or below, you're pretty much okay, but you want to make sure you're checking in on your numbers, preventing heart disease, stroke. You want to make sure that your heart is okay. And heart disease and stroke is one of those silent deadly killers, and it shows up differently in people. You may not even know that you're having a stroke. You could have slurred speech. You know, you could have one side of your arm get numb. There's a lot of different symptoms, but you want to make sure that you're okay. Preventive measures is always a good thing. And then we're looking at the cholesterol. So one interesting stat here was nearly half of Black women have a total cholesterol number that is way too high. Way too high. So when you're looking at your cholesterol, we're looking at the HDL and the LDL. So a nice way I like to tell people to remember is LDL low are lousy, so you want to make sure that number's low, so low, lousy. And the HDL, you want to think high or higher. So you want to have more of that HDL, right? So the low density lipoprotein is what the LDL stands for. So it builds up in your arteries, and as it builds up, this is what could lead to that heart attack, stroke. So we want to make sure that's down. We want to have that LDL number down. We want to make sure that HDL number is up. That's like the superhero. So age of 35. One interesting thing here is hypothyroidism is an underactive thyroid and affects women as much as 7 times more than men. Undetected, it can lead to weight gain, joint pain, infertility, or even heart disease. And two tests to look at is your Hpd test. This is where there's 2 types of Hpd, and it causes about 70% of cervical cancers. A lot of this is detected when you get your vaccines, but making sure that you are aware of that so that you can prevent having any type of cervical cancer. It is growing in numbers among our Black women, so you want to make sure that you are taking that first step in keeping up from a reproductive standpoint. And then lastly, most importantly, is mammogram. So Black women have higher death rates from breast cancer, so you want to make sure that you are really empowered to check on yourself and make sure that there's nothing there. When you go to your gynecologist, you might actually have that physical examination. There's tools to teach you how to check as well, but actually having an x-ray too to make sure that there's no abnormal cells, something that can be preventable. So a lot of times we might get to it too late when if we would have jumped on it right away. You know, we could have stopped a lot of things from spreading or from becoming worse than what it is. All right, and then lastly, just an additional screening is blood sugar check. So type 2 diabetes is the most common diabetes, and it's one of the highest among our African American women. So this is important to really start to check once every 3 years starting at age 45. If your body BMI is higher, or where your doctors would say obese, you might have to check it higher so that you can prevent going from pre-diabetic into full diabetic. But you want to make sure you can catch that right away if that's you, because it is reversible. You know, we have great trainers in here juicing in different ways, but we want to make sure that you can prevent, because a lot of these diseases are preventable if you can jump on it right away. So going from here, there's a couple slides with just recommended screenings. I'm not going to go through that just for time's sake. But really what I want to have a conversation about is this conversation about communication. So when you are in your doctor's office, or even with your children or yourself, asking the right questions. So I put down 5 questions that want you guys to keep in your tool bag when you're going to the doctors, when you're arriving for your checkup. So one of those things is, have you had the proper informed consent conversation with your healthcare provider? So what I mean by that is asking the right questions, discussing suggested treatment or viable treatment alternatives. For instance, in cancer, you might necessarily jump on radiation first, but there might be a better alternative for you. It could be a change of lifestyle. It could be a more vegetarian diet approach or vegan diet approach. It could be increasing your activity where we're quick to like, let's take this radiation. But maybe there's another option. So having that dialogue with your doctor, making sure that you're asking questions so that you're informed and you're not just taking this medication or you're not just going for this treatment because it's offered, right? Again, you matter and putting yourself first. The second question to ask is, are my health concerns being fully addressed? You should be able to leave your doctor's office knowing that your conversations were addressed, your questions were answered. If you feel like your doctor blew you off, if you feel like your doctor wasn't attentive to your needs, then maybe that means you might have to change your doctor. Because you matter, you're paying your money when you show up. If you have insurance, you're going to these different clinics. And sometimes one of the things I deal with in healthcare is even the treatments that healthcare providers provide to you. And sometimes they can be very rude, sometimes they can be very standoffish, but you deserve great access to care, and you have to advocate for yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable, bring somebody with you, because again, you matter, put yourself first, right? Then that transition to, am I my own biggest advocate? Can you express yourself? Listen to your instincts, trust your gut. You know your body better than the doctor. The doctor will go off your symptoms, but you know what's happening. You feel a pain and they're kind of blowing you off. You maybe know, I have a pain in my body. Keep pressing the issue. A lot of this can be preventive. It really occurs in our especially with pregnancy. You know, we have a high rate of infant mortality in our Black community and the problems that come up in our pregnancy. So you have to be your own biggest advocate. You know your body. Trust your body. As you start to go through your work days and breathing and moving, really start to spend that time listening to your body. If you feel a pain, note that pain, write down. Make sure you're tracking those things, because a lot of times we're our own greatest teacher and we know what's happening and we have to advocate and express it. And then moving along to that next question, 2 more to go. Is my healthcare provider capable of providing the level of care I'm looking for? So let's say you're looking for nutrition, but your doctor doesn't really have that background. Maybe I need to go somewhere else so that I can be supported and have my questions answered. And don't be afraid to have 1 or 2. You know, go to those resources. You might seek a nutritionist. You might seek a personal trainer to help you support your fitness journeys. But all the tools are there, but make sure you're approaching it so that you're doing the best for you. And then lastly, is it time to explore different options? So as a Black woman, it's important to understand how you're feeling and communicate your symptoms. A lot of times we're brushed off, or as a Black woman, a lot of times what you see in healthcare is they say we have a high threshold of pain. That might not be the case. So you need to advocate for yourself. You need to express for yourself, like, oh, I might need this or that. But being able to have those questions, listening to your body, seeking all of your options is really key in managing your health. And then lastly, just kind of going into the topic of COVID-19 and vaccination. So, you know, it's ultimately your choice if you want to get vaccinated. You have the right to choose. You have the right to decide what's best for you and your body. But like knowing the options that you have from different vaccines, whether it's taking Pfizer, Moderna, or whether it's going for Johnson & Johnson in 1 shot, there's booster shots that are now available. Johnson & Johnson doesn't have one. Moderna doesn't even, but Pfizer does, and that's for those 65 and older or 18, and they're in certain situations that make them more exposed. But even today, as we continue to navigate this new normal with the COVID vaccine, is just keeping safe. One of the biggest things we can do is wash our hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Something so simple, but sometimes you see people not washing their hands, but just keeping yourself safe and making sure that your loved ones are safe. So I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here. One of the slides in there I have is a superwoman, just reminding each and every one of you, you are amazing, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are made in God's image, and you have a purpose and a plan. And just thank you for showing up for yourself today. And remember to advocate for you. If there's nothing else, you matter. Make sure that you're speaking up for yourself.
Once again, I would like to thank Elizabeth. The handout is valuable. Like, I was reading it, and it really does help us to understand how to But she does this for Metro. They don't need it. In one day.
No,
Right? And I don't understand. Like, and so I appreciate her taking the time.
they don't need